No, we're in our weekly share of Dvar Malchus, our weekly class of Dvar Malchus of the Rebbe Shlitah Melech Mashiach. We just mentioned in the hard copy, we're on page 356, and the PDF file, we're on page 2, and we're beginning a brand new sicha, the sicha for the portion of Tetzaveh. And Tetzaveh means that you shall command. Who we're talking about? We're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, that Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu that you shall command, but it doesn't mention Moshe Rabbeinu's name. The entire parsha is void of Moshe Rabbeinu's name. And this is, as we know, because the words of a tzaddik do not go unanswered, even if it is for not for the revealed goodness. When Hashem went and told Moshe Rabbeinu that he would go and he would wipe out the entire Jewish people after the Chas v'Sholem, after the sin of the golden calf, and start everything from new with Moshe Rabbeinu, so then Moshe Rabbeinu said, Im kein mecheni na misifrecha. If this is the case, so blot me out from your book. And Baruch Hashem, Hashem had rachmanas, Hashem had mercy on us. He didn't blot us out, and Moshe Rabbeinu continued to be the leader of the Jewish nation. But because Moshe Rabbeinu mentioned these words, Mecheni na misifrecha, blot me out from your book, so these words had to be instated as well. Where do we see it's instated? We see that from the beginning of the birth of where Moshe Rabbeinu is mentioned, the beginning of the book of Shmos, the book of Exodus, until the very end of the book of Dvarim, of Deuteronomy, where Moshe Rabbeinu seemingly takes part and goes up from the Jewish nation, goes up on Har Nevo, there is not one parsha that doesn't mention Moshe Rabbeinu's name, with the exception of this parsha, Parshas Tetzaveh. And this is one of the major reasons why, is the reason that we just said. Since Moshe Rabbeinu uttered these words from his mouth, that he should be blotted out of the book of Hashem, of the Torah, Hashem went and instated it here in this parsha. Misichas Leil V'Yem Gimel, Leil V'Yem V'Erev Shabbos Kodesh. The sichas of the Rebbe from the night and the day of Tuesday, and the night and the day of the eve of Shabbos. In other words, Thursday night and Friday. Shabbos Kodesh Parshas Tetzaveh, and Shabbos itself, the Farbrengen that took place on the Parsha of Tetzaveh. Zayin Yud V'Yud Aleph Adar Rishon, the 7th, the 10th, and the 11th of the first Adar. That year, Hatafshin Nun Beis, in 5752, 1992, that year was a Jewish leap year as well. Aleph. Parshas Tetzaveh hi parsha yichida b'Torah la'achri leidas Moshe b'shiva ba'adar rishon shelo nisparish b'shmei shel Moshe. As we just mentioned, Parshas Tetzaveh is the only parsha in the Torah after the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu that took place. Moshe Rabbeinu was born on the 7th of Adar, Adar Rishon. The Rebbe is careful to mention that Moshe Rabbeinu was born on the first Adar, not the second Adar, and therefore we see that Moshe Rabbeinu was born in a Jewish leap year, and in the Jewish leap year he was born in Adar, and in the Adar he was born the first Adar, not the second Adar, on the 7th of the Hebrew month of Adar Rishon. And we find two reasons for this. Aleph, first of all, since on the 7th of Adar Rishon, again, stressing that the birth was Adar Rishon, and also when the day that Moshe Rabbeinu took leave of the Jewish nation was also the 7th of Adar Rishon, the first Adar. Since that day, Moshe Rabbeinu, so to speak, to the eyes of the Jewish nation, passed on. Nirma zman istalkusei b'chach shalei nizkar shmei b'parasha b'Torah shekri'asa b'smichus l'zman istalkusei. This concept is hinted to. This concept of his passing on is hinted to in the fact that his name is not mentioned in the parsha of the Torah, of which this parsha is read always nearby the time of his passing, which is Zayin Adar. We're not far from Zayin Adar in another few weeks. Base, the second reason, since Moshe Rabbeinu said that if not, so blot me out from your book, and the curse of a chacham, of a Torah sage, even if it is with a condition, and the condition was not fulfilled, so therefore also the curse should not be fulfilled. But nevertheless, it exists, it comes. Lochein, therefore, even though the Holy One, blessed be He, replied to the request of Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore the Tanai, the condition, was not fulfilled. Mikol Mokim, nevertheless, Niskayim ha-Mecheni mi-Parsha achas b'Torah. Nevertheless, the Mecheni, the being blotted out from the Torah, also was fulfilled, at least from one Parsha in the entire Torah, from the time that Moshe Rabbeinu was born. Uvishtei hat-omim dorosh bira vehesber. And in these two reasons, we need, what's going on? Interesting. I guess something's wrong with the camera, but nevertheless, we'll continue. Does everyone can hear? Yeah. In these two, oh, that's better. Oh, also almost better. In these two factors, we need an explanation. In these two explanations that we just brought, we need to bring an explanation. Aleph, first of all, b'negeya le'atam de misas Moshe b'shiva ba'adar, in regard to the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away on the 7th of Adar, kevan sheb'shiva ba'adar meis u'b'shiva ba'adar neilad, since it was on the 7th of Adar that Moshe Rabbeinu passed on, and on the 7th of Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu was born, kedaihu yom haleida shetchaper al hamisa. It is beneficial for the day of the birth to go and to atone for the day of the passing of an individual. Kamutgosh bevitul simchas haman, simchas haman, as it is also stressed in the nullification of the joy of Haman HaRasha, Ugzeirose, and his decree, etc. Chulu, in the story of Purim, Kishanofal Pur beYareach shemeis beMoshe, when the lots that were drawn by Haman fell in the month that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. And this is due to the fact that Haman was not aware of the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu, yes, true that he passed away on the 7th of Adar, but he also was born on the 7th of Adar. So therefore, the questions that is asked is, why was there in the Torah a time that was that was designated, that is parallel to the time of the passing away of Moshe Rabbeinu, al yedei shelo nispar shmei, through the fact that his name was not mentioned in this parsha. V'lo yal zman leidosei, but it doesn't stress the concept of the time of his birth, shemechaper al misa, that atones for the death of the individual. Base, in regard to the reason that it states, blot me, and Moshe Rabbeinu says about himself that Hashem should blot him out from the Torah, from the book. Since this statement was after the 17th of the Hebrew month of Tammuz, and it was written in the Torah itself, in the portion of Ki Tisa, which comes after the portion of Tetzaveh, in the order of the portions in the book of Shmais. Lama nirmas kiyuma. Why is it that the fulfillment of this curse? Why is it hinted to? Where Bismichus l'Shiva ba'Adar, it is parallel to the 7th of Adar, ubeparshas Tetzaveh, and in the portion of Tetzaveh. Ubifrat le'adeyos sheparshas Tetzaveh nemra lifnei chet ha'egel, and especially according to those opinions that the portion of Tetzaveh was said to Moshe Rabbeinu before the sin of the golden calf. Gimel, third question. Gam tzarich lehovin, we also have to understand hakesher v'hashaychus, the connection and the bonding, the beis hateomim ze lo ze, of these two explanations that we mentioned earlier, one to the other, one with the other. Shaliyosem teomim al inyan, since they are explanations in regard to the same concept, mistaber leima sheyesh kesher v'shaychus b'neim. It's most probable that to say that there is a connection between them, kidulekaman, as will be explained. Base. V'yuvin behagdi mabir begoydel ha'ilui the leidas Moshe b'shiva ba'adar. We'll understand when we preface the explanation in regard to how great and how elevated was the episode of the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu on the 7th of Adar, stressing the concept of the 7th of Adar, Yom Simcha, a day of joy, shepoyel al kol chodesh Adar, that has an effect on the entire month of Adar. B'negel l'chodesh Adar, in regard to the month of Adar, Isa b'Gemara, it is brought in the Talmud. Kevan shenofal pur b'chodesh Adar, since the lottery, the lots were drawn, and the month that was drawn was the month of Adar, somach Haman simcha gedela, Haman harasha, Haman the wicked, rejoiced a great joy. Omar, he said, nofal li pur b'yorech shemeis bei Moshe. I drew the lot for the month that he wanted to decree his terrible, evil decree upon the Jewish nation on the month that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. And he was not knowledgeable of the fact that on the 7th of Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, and on the 7th of Adar, he also was born. Hainu, in other words, says the Rebbe, Shaleidas Moshe b'Shiva ba'Adar, that the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu on the 7th of Adar, Payeles bitul va'afichos gzeres Haman b'chodesh Adar, has the activation to nullify and to turn around the decree of Haman in the month of Adar. Specifically in the month of Adar, this is where this empowerment comes to the Jewish nation. In a manner that, as we see in the Megillah, it states, that this month, the month of Adar, is the month that Nepach, that was turned around for the Jewish nation, Lissimcha, with to be joyous. V'lachen, mishenachnas Adar marbim besimcha. And this is the reason that from the time that we usher in the month of Adar, we increase in our joy, in our happiness. The Adar, the Bori Takif Mazole, and the month of Adar that we find is its mazel is Bori, is healthy, and is Takif, and is strong. Mailem Yuchedes B'Chedesh Adar, the month of Adar has a special virtue. Shalei Matzinu Dukmasa B'Shar Chodshei Hashana, that we have not found an example to this in any of the other months of the year. Okay. Now we begin to understand the greatness of the seventh of the month of Adar, the month that Moshe Rabbeinu was born in, the great month that has the empowerment to go and to change things from one from one side to the other, literally to go and to change darkness into light, to bitterness into sweetness. Comes the Rebbe and says, "B'tzarich lahavim." We have to understand this. Mipashtus divrei Gemara, from the simple manner that the Talmud expresses this. It's only proven that the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu in the month of Adar mivateles, it cancels out, it annuls, umechaperes, and it atones al ha'inyan abilti rotzui, for the non-desirable factor or concept, shebemisosei b'chodesh zeh, which occurred in the month of Adar, which was the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, the day of his death, so to speak. And the reason that Haman was so joyous and happy was because of the fact that Haman knew that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away in the month of Adar, on the 7th of the month of Adar. And seemingly there's no proof from here that the virtue of the month of Adar should be great. Tigdal, and it should be expressed on a greater level. Why does this mean that the month of Adar is greater than all the virtues of all the other months of the year? This question becomes even stronger. Even stronger, according to that which is explained in the homiletic writings of our rabbis of blessed memory, the details of the lots that were drew by Haman Harasha. What are the details? As the Rebbe comes and explains now. Kisha Haman Harasha le'abed es Yisrael, when Haman Harasha had the desire to get rid of the Jewish nation, Omar, he said, "Hey, achani sholet behen hareini mapil geroles." How will I be able to control the Jewish nation? The Jewish nation is Hashem's nation. So he said, I'll go and I'll draw lots. I'll draw lots. Hischil b'chedesh Nisan, began drawing the lots with the month of Nisan. The Ola be'eschus Pesach. But the merit of the holiday of Pesach came up. The Iyar, he tried the month of Iyar, schus Pesach cotton v'chulu. But over there, he had the schus of Pesach cotton. We have the Yud Daled. Yeah, it's we know Yud Daled Adar is nitoken for fallen, right? Let's go. V'helech u'meine Hazchuyos shel kol Yud Aleph Chodshei Hashana. And he went and he enumerated the merits of the Jewish nation in all the months of the year. Ad she'olo Reish Chodesh Adar, until he came to the first of the month of Adar. Came to the month of Adar, which is the last month of the Jewish calendar, because we count the months from the month of Nisan. V'lei motza bei shum schus, and he didn't find any merit in the month of Adar. No merits. The Jewish nation, our account then was empty in the month of Adar. It only filled up afterwards, so to speak, when we had the holiday of Purim. This is what Haman thought. Chozar ubodak b'mazoles. He returned and he checked in the constellations of the stars. Tole schus Pesach. Yeah? We're talking about the month of the Taleh, the goat. That was the merit of Pesach. Sure, when we're talking about the constellation of the bull, Nimtza schus Yosef v'chulu. There was the schus of Yosef HaTzadik. And he went and he enumerated the merits of the constellations of the mazoles, what is called today the zodiac. The whole Yud Aleph of all the 11 Chodshei Hashana, all the 11 months of the year. Ad shebalei mazal dagim, until he came to the mazel of Pisces, of the fish. Shehu meshamesh b'chodesh Adar, which is in this is its constellation in the month of Adar. And he did not find any merits in the mazel of Dagim. The Somach Miyad, and he immediately rejoiced. The Omar, and he said, Adar ein lo ischus, umazolei ein lo ischus. The month of Adar has no merits for the Jewish nation, and the constellations of the month of Adar have no merits for the Jewish nation. And not only this, but furthermore, Adar meis Moshe Rabban. We see that in the month of Adar, their rabbi, their great leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, passed away. And he, Haman, was not aware, he did not know that on the first of Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. And then the first of Adar, in other words, the first month of Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu was born. The Omar, and he said, Keshem she'adogim beilim kach, ani boilei ha'ison. He went and he made a logic in his mind that just as one fish swallows the other fish, and by the way, even if you look at the sign of Pisces, you see that it's not one fish, it's two fish, but one fish is not facing the other fish face to face. It's one fish, and the other fish is facing the tail of the next fish. In other words, each one wants to eat the other, so to speak. Each one wants to swallow the other. Haman was very happy. He said, just like in the mazel of Dagim, one fish wants to swallow the other fish, and fish swallow each other anyway. So also, Kachani bolei ha'ison. So also I, Haman said, he will swallow up the Jewish nation, God forbid. Omar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Holy One, blessed be He, said to Haman, Rasha, wicked one. So he said to Haman Rasha, Dagim pe'omim nivloim u'pe'omim peulim. Fish sometimes are swallowed by other fish, and sometimes they swallow other fish. Ve'achshav Oisei ha'ish nivla min ha'beilin. And now that person, he was talking about Haman, Hashem is mentioning Haman, he will be swallowed by those that swallow. In other words, the Jewish nation will swallow Haman Rasha. And in this is even more stressed, lichura, at first glance, that the birth of Haman only cancels out the undesirable concept of the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, the passing away of Moshe Rabbeinu. The dugmas bitula efsharus, in exemplative to the nullifying of the possibility, the ani boilea oisan, of Haman Rasha swallowing them, swallowing us, the Jewish nation, God forbid. Since sometimes, including and especially now, like the Medrash mentioned, the fish also swallow. They are not only swallowed up by other fish, but the other fish also swallow other fish. And so also the Jewish nation swallowed Haman Rasha. But when we speak about the month itself, Nishar b'maimud u'matzav, the month itself remains in the status, in the stature of she'ein lo zchus, that the month itself doesn't have a merit. And like we mentioned above, the constellation, the mazel of the month, Pisces, also doesn't have any merits for the Jewish nation in it. And certainly, the Rebbe says, in a manner that it has such a great virtue, uzchus, and merit, Yesera, a greater merit and virtue, in comparison to all the other months of the year. So we have to understand, where does it come off that the Torah tells us, and the Shulchan Aruch brings it as a law in the Jewish code of law, that the merit of the month of Adar, Bari Mazle, Tokif Mazle, that the mazel of the month of Adar is healthy, the mazel of the month of Adar is strong. We don't understand it yet, and we have yet to Bezrat Hashem understand it. Mirz Hashem in next week's class, and it should be immediately in the third and the eternal Beis Hamikdash, with the immediate victory and of the soldiers of the army and the security forces of Am Yisrael all over the world, over our enemies, Rahman Litzlan, and the immediate healing of all the wounded and the return of all those that are in bondage, and the hostages, Teichef Miyad Mamish, on a good and revealed basis, mitoch simcha v'tuv levav, in a manner of happiness and joy of the heart, b'teva nirav and nigla, on a good and revealed basis, v'oid v'hu ha'ikar, and this is the main thing. It should be teichef u'miyad, immediately, teichef u'miyad mamish, immediately in actuality. Yechi Adoneinu Moreinu v'Rabbeinu HaMelech HaMoshiach Chai v'Kayam le'olam voed.